Good day to you all, our viewers in Cameroon and around the world. Welcome to the program. On Press R, without suppressing our emotions, we let our good sense lead our ideas and our discussions. That is what we do on Press R. On today's edition of the program, we're going to discuss KUMBA massacre. Is it a moral or a war crisis? It towards goes beyond war. We also have another topic that will be of interest to all of us: education in the Northwest and Southwest. How to sustain the momentum that had already been gathered across the country in that war-torn part of the country. Those are the topics we're going to treat today, and our panel is made up of Reverend Dr. Nditeme Shalamand, CBC Field Pastor for Yaoundé, that covers the center, the south, and the east regions. Welcome to the program, Pastor.
Thank you, Kilian.
Yes, I have Barrister Panji Roland. He is a psychosocial expert. He knows so much about people who are psychologically traumatized, talking more about what happened in KUMBA, the classmates of the students who were killed, their parents, and all other people concerned. Good day, welcome to the program, Barrister.
Thank you very much. The pleasure is shared.
And to the extreme right, I have Stephen Ojong. Stephen Ojong is the publisher of the Median newspaper and a regular person on Press R. Welcome to the program.
It's always good to be on Press R.
Yes, to the extreme left, I have moi, Patrick, desk editor, the Guardian newspaper, the Guardian Post newspaper.
That's right.
It's the only English language
daily
in Cameroon, running for long. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Kilian. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. The pleasure is shared. You now know the people with whom we're going to work today. We invite you to stay tuned. But before we start the discussion, watch with us the press review, which is focused on the massacre. The killing of school children of the Mother Francisca's International Bilingual Academy in KUMBA on October 25 made headlines in all tabloids within the week. The insider writes, "So cruel, so heartless." The Guardian Post looks at it as an act beyond cruelty and says it is barbarism, while the national official daily Cameroon Tribune describes the assassination as inhuman. The Star writes that gunning down 8 students in the classroom makes the day a Black Saturday. Eden newspaper looks at the gruesome killings as a shock and shame to the nation. This happens at the time Newswatch borrows from horror films and simply describes the act as horrific. The Herald Tribune, which sees the KUMBA killings as the peak of terrorism, attributes it to Amba fighters. To the Post newspaper, it is despicable barbarism. In Death, The Sun and The Voice say the cold-blood killings are a shame. Feelings of sympathy also came across, so strong in the press. The Holy See, Pope Francis weeps, while Cameroon Tribune writes, "Forever in our hearts," and prescribes a common front against barbarism, while the Post opens a controversial chapter by saying "Stop the war, hired protesters, commercial mourners can't end Cameroon's bloodbath." Municipal Updates refutes by quoting the mourners who say, "We were not hired to protest." In the same light, Chronicle Times says those who think the protesters were hired are taking the pain of mourning mothers for granted. It doesn't shake the public authorities who carried out an official mission to the Southwest to comfort the affected people on behalf of the nation. The President of the Republic lives above those who use the incident to provoke Anglophones, according to the Post newspaper. He declares a day of national mourning observed Saturday, October 31, with the flag flying at half-mast across the country and in all diplomatic and consular services of Cameroon around the world. There were other issues in the press, but the nation is mourning its children. Yes, and that was the focus. The press actually talked about so many other things. We decided to focus on the gruesome murder of school children. And we cannot just jump into the topic without revisiting that this week, beginning with you, Patrick, that newspapers actually went forward, except for the small controversial chapter that we saw in the newspaper review. We know that all newspapers condemned it, and even the controversial chapter that the Post newspaper opened, they had condemned it.
I don't know why you consider it controversial.
Well,
it will appear the reporters, they did their homework, going by the defense that have been putting up. They're actually saying that the reporter spoke to several of the protesters who actually confess to have been hired to take part in the protest. Well, that's not the focus. It doesn't matter whether they were hired or not. The truth is, nobody can be indifferent
yes,
to the barbaric act
you will continue, but to say that they met some who were hired. When you saw all those people who can hire the I should call them millions of people who came out, how will you do that? Where are their feelings?
Well, like I said, we are not really here to dissect the article that was published by the Post newspaper that I respect. They have one of the most credible newsrooms in the country, in Anglophone Cameroon, in the Anglophone media landscape. And I think that the Post is too big to have just fabricated a story from the newsroom in Boya. The issue, like I said, is not really an issue of whether they were hired or not. We actually saw women who were showing a lot of sympathy, concern to what happened. Like I said, no other person, a human being, would have been indifferent to the carnage that took place in KUMBA. It calls for global concern, like we have been seeing. Even institutions, organizations, and individuals who until now have not made public statements on the crisis in the Northwest and Southwest came out this time around to condemn in strong terms what happened in KUMBA. We know how dear women and children are, and those are persons in society that have to be protected because we know they belong to the weaker sex, or so to say, women, for example, and not leaving out children who are vulnerable. They need absolute protection. And for somebody to pull the trigger at a child who is without arms, for example, it is, to say the least, is barbaric, and it's something that should be condemned with all energy.
Yes, and it was condemned across the board, Patrick. I go to the ends before I hem in towards me. Stephen, publisher of the Median newspaper, the Median condemned that act. They sometimes will look at what is a glass half full or half empty, talking about controversial. How did you treat, without talking about them, I'm referring to what I said controversial, and Patrick has explained. How did you treat that story?
Well, at the Median, we were asking the question, who did this kind of barbaric act, and why? What pushed them to carry out such an act that, by every reckoning, should be condemned, because no reasoning, no reasons advanced can be strong enough, can be good enough to explain the killing of children who are trying to get education. It is true that in the Northwest and Southwest, the situation we are going through has been allowed to decay, and just anything could happen. But I never imagined that it will get to the level where people will stand in front of, at close range, in front of kids who are undertaking their lessons in class and shoot at them.
After shooting, it is horrific. We are told they used machetes.
Well, whatever be the case, it is unheard of. It is unacceptable that human beings, reasonable human beings, should stand and shoot at close range at innocent children who are acquiring education. Because if I understand those who who carried out the act very well. They did it because the crime committed by the children is that they were acquiring education. So when you sentence somebody to death for going to school, I begin to ask myself what society we are living in.
All of us are asking ourselves that question, Stephen. I stop near you with Barrister Panji Roland, who is a psychosocial expert. When you see such a thing in terms of trauma to the schoolmates of those who were killed, trauma to the parents of these children who were killed, trauma even to the parents and other Cameroonians who watched this, including all of us here. How do you, from a point of view of psychological trauma, do we see this?
It is, thank you very much, Killian. It is from a perspective that can be a bit different in that whosoever is not sympathetic to what has happened in KUMBA is not fit to live, because life is sacred. And the importance of life that is given by God should not be thwarted by certain individuals for any reason whatsoever. That is the first. The second part of it concerning trauma is that in Cameroon, we don't know blood. And once you are exposed to blood, like the quantities we saw in Fiango KUMBA, it keeps every conscientious person very traumatized. I look at mothers who deliver children, carry the child for donkey months, and then delivers and start bringing up that child. I look at other parents who are searching for one, and you try to juxtapose the raison d'etre of this type of an action. All we just have to say is that
all of them, you continue, all those children, the parents have very, very traumatic feelings towards them. You are talking about those who look for children they don't see. Victory, whose name comes on the lips of everybody. We are told the parents for about 10 years look for a child, and God bless them with that child, the only child, and that's the end of that child.
I pray to God to do the miracle he did before. And we can see it in the Bible. We are seeing it even in Yaoundé at the hospital where children are given. And I know God cannot leave a void. God will sincerely answer them, and will answer them richly.
We'll say amen to that. But we also have another case, I am told, Patrick and Stephen, who are field reporters, should confirm or modify it, that in the officially seven, who are declared dead, because 6 were on the spot, 1 later, 4 were from one parent whose trauma did not let her leave.
Well, so far the information has been debunked by sources in KUMBA. But no matter whatever the case, even if somebody doesn't give up the ghost because of the massacre in KUMBA, like the barrister was saying, it leaves every other person disturbed by what we saw in KUMBA. And it's even more disturbing that if on campuses where prior to the resumption of lectures for this current academic year, all assurance was given with regards to total security on campus, that if in broad daylight at 11 a.m. armed men can freely walk into a campus and shoot at kids who are taking lessons without any trace, it leaves every other person disturbed about the possibility of us really having a hitch-free academic year, and it now puts to question
we are going to
efforts that government
has been
trumpeting so far.
We're going to look at that in the second topic, okay. Patrick. Reverend, I come to you. When Barrister was talking, he made mention of the fact that it is God who gives life, and we hear that during funerals and everywhere, that it is also God who is supposed to take. When you look at what happened in KUMBA, the way life was taken from these children.
Thank you. Thank you, Killian. What happened in KUMBA adds to an already very disturbing list of other happenings that preceded KUMBA. We can think of Boa Bakundu, we can think of Kembong, we can think of Pingin, Bali, Kwakwa, and of course, Ngarbu last February, and the list keeps going on very long.
We cannot forget Comfort Tumazang, not long ago.
Right, right. Pingin and so on. So KUMBA stands out because all the victims were school children, thereby causing the inhumanity and the barbaric act to go over the top of all these other cases that we saw. On that note, to be sincere, I believe that our land is cursed because of too much shedding of innocent blood without any interruption for the past 4 years. We are just about entering into the 5th year, and KUMBA has just come over the top. Cameroon needs cleansing, to be very honest. For now, the murderers of the school children in KUMBA are called unidentified gunmen. When I look at the titles during the press review, one thing that struck me was there seemed to be some discrepancy between placing responsibility on AMBA fighters, as I saw in many of the newspapers, and concomitantly we are talking about unidentified gunmen. Yeah, I want to say...
maybe just to clarify, since he's talking about newspaper reports, I think it is not the place of the journalist to place responsibility on this or that group, except investigations have been carried out.
Right.
And we are practicing journalism, and journalism is not about hearsay, it is not about gossip, it is the facts, and facts are sacrosanct. The facts are the same. Because if now the journalists or the various newspapers apportion the blame on one party, and it turns out, like the case of Gabo, where initially an SDO was set on record that the act was carried out by AMBA boys. Yes. And after thorough investigation, it emerged that it was carried out by soldiers.
Yes.
So in a war situation, everything is possible. There's a lot of propaganda.
Yes.
They can even come in military fatigue.
That's correct.
Yes, just the clarification.
No, you're correct. Before you go ahead, Reverend, in what the newspapers have talked about, there are some that attributed that to
because government has already said so.
Yes.
Through communication minister, he actually said we're AMBA boys.
That is correct. And we don't have social media as a source of information, a credible source of information, but we also have the different groups of the AMBA fighters.
But they have not claimed, none of them have claimed responsibility.
I'm saying we can't. From social media, we know that the division is attributed to some of them. And their names that are coming out on social media, I've read that on newspapers, Ayaba, and others. So
I want to add that identified or unidentified, this barbaric action deserves the highest condemnation from the entire world, irrespective of race, religion, geography, or our linguistic construct. And the massacred children, of course, they were victims of the most vicious and heartbreaking crimes ever perpetrated against humanity ever since this ongoing crisis was born. They did not die fighting against the military. They did not die fighting against the AMBA forces.
They know nothing about it.
They knew nothing about it. They were killed in search of knowledge while they were pursuing knowledge, learning in order to be responsible citizens. Let me seize the privilege of being on this panel to call upon the architects of these horrendous killings to repent, and God would forgive them. The Bible says in 1 John 1:9, if you confess your sin, God is faithful and just to forgive. Someone like John Newton, the author of Amazing Grace, he did worse than this. And when he repented, God forgave him.
Okay, that's correct. Thank you. Yes.
The situation in KUMBA has happened. We should not replay the tape every now and then, but we should be positively looking for solutions so that the type of thing in KUMBA cannot happen again.
Yes,
and secondly, let school going back be confirmed and assured.
That's our second topic. That's our second topic.
Is broken down.
That's our second topic. We're going to get to that.
Okay.
Yes. Just the last thing.
Yes, almost in line with what he's saying, because it doesn't take us anywhere, whether we condemn with all the energy that you can imagine on earth. But this, it calls for the moment for concrete actions to be taken to end the ongoing bloodbath that we have been observing in the Northwest. I've always, Northwest and Southwest, I've always asked myself, what is the problem? Why do we take the option of feet dragging when well-meaning Cameroonians and international organizations have advanced relevant proposals on how we can come out of this? The list is long. But the likes of Cardinal Tumi, Tumfo Barrister Nico Hale, the International Crisis Group, the United Nations,
so many of them,
they have all advanced proposals on how we can come out. How many more people do we want killed?
No, none of us want. None of us want anybody
take concrete actions to have this crisis.
Yes, none of us
to an end.
want that to happen. Most of those names renowned that you have cited were present at the major national dialogue.
At the meeting in Yaoundé?
Yes, meeting in Yaoundé. And
that
I think it is in process.
It's in process.
It is in process, and we cannot fail to mention that if you think that it's not enough, it is ongoing.
I may just add that what happened in KUMBA is telling of the fact that whatever the reason for choosing a military or armed option has been defeated. For no reason whatsoever should we continue with the arms option to tackle the problem in the Northwest and Southwest region.
Why waiting for the political?
If a ceasefire is not called before long, we'll continue having such.
And we'll keep crying every day. We'll go to Twitter. And just to add that point, what I've noticed is that there appears to be the lack of the political will to have this crisis brought to an end. Because you appear...
Don't you think that is so complex?
No, it is not complex, Kill. And I'm saying that we are not... Each time in Cameroon, we always give the impression as if we are inventing the wheel. Other countries have had similar experiences than what we are going through.
I think that is complex.
No, let me just make a point. What I'm trying to say is that it appears on both sides that people were chopping fat from this whole thing.
And that makes it complex.
It makes it complex, but we know exactly how we can come out of this mess.
Because apart from the fact that it's complex, there's another angle to it. The people, the commanders of the armed struggle in Anglophone Cameroon, I mean on the side of the separatists, are living in their comfort zones in the diaspora. So they don't feel the impact of what is happening down here. I want to believe that if they were here back home...
Where does the solution lie? Does it lie
here back home?
Let me react to this since you raised it. You're asking for a solution.
Yes, the political will. It appears there's a lack of the political will to have this conflict resolved.
Look at the commission, disarmament. Don't laugh.
No, I'm laughing because I wanted to advance towards that direction that all along for 3 years, we appear to have been putting the cart before the horse. When you talk about
why don't you turn the horse?
The short and long is that we are merely looking at the consequences and forgetting
we're playing to the gallery.
The cause.
We're playing to the gallery and every day we'll keep money. You are talking about reconstruction. Let me say, in Anglophone regions, an Anglophone doesn't need a reconstruction commission to have those regions built.
Do they need to peace returns?
No, if peace returns to the Northwest and Southwest, my father's house in Way, in Menchum, that was burned down by whosoever, will be raised without any assistance from government. Anglophones are good at that. We will reconstruct the region, but let peace be restored and let the concrete actions be taken by the powers that be.
Patrick,
if Ojong is talking about...
I stay with you. If all those who are in the bushes...
That's right.
They have been officially called and said, if you come out, you'll be forgiven. And many have come out and they have been forgiven.
Now we know some that came out and were killed in Dove and other places.
Maybe they didn't take the right approach to come out. Okay. If they all come out, there will be no fighting, for example.
But Killian, there's a problem. There again, there's a problem.
Yes.
You don't ask somebody to come out from the bush when you didn't ask him to go into the bush.
That's right.
When you ask them to come out from the bush, what are you doing about the persons who asked them to go into the bush? So you have to talk with the persons who asked them to go into the bush, and you come to a consensus so that they ask their boys in the bush to come out of the bush.
That has been done. They've been asked to do that. Reverend, Reverend, you just one word and then we get out of it. We redirect the topic.
I just want to add this to say that all the condemnations, public, private, verbal, and then all the public marches, as we saw, it would not bring an end to this. They are merely cosmetic solutions to real problems. Yeah. We know what the problems are. We know what can be done to bring this problem to a close, but we have politicized it. Unfortunately,
we will treat that in the second subject, because the second subject, look at
we know who to put around the dialogue table.
Reverend, the second topic is about education in Northwest Southwest, how to sustain
well, you were
the momentum.
You were mentioning
going to come
the
to
national dialogue.
Yes.
The national dialogue happened, and it has not produced the results. We must ask our
not
question,
yet produced
why?
the results.
It
we
has
should
not
say.
produced all the results.
Okay, now when you were speaking earlier, you say God will forgive all these people.
If
but
they
we want
repent,
to think,
if they repent and own up and confess and submit themselves to authorities.
We also want to think that
they should submit themselves to authorities.
And that they should not escape the law, because it's societal law.
Yes.
In about 6 minutes, we are going to see how this is more of a moral crisis than a war crisis. Because when we look at people, they get guns, come into a classroom and shoot and fire on students. I think if they were out for war, they would have gone for those who are fighting for them. Is it really not a moral rather than war crisis?
Well, we know that we are in war down there in the Northwest and Southwest. It's war. But this is absolutely a moral crisis. Because even in war, international law, there is international law that regulates war. And during war, hospitals, schools, they are not places to go with arms. And these murderers, these butchers, they went into that school. It is not like their opponents were hiding there. That would have been a different story. Their opponents were not there. These children were there, harmless, defenseless. I mean, without any arms. And then they moved there and shot at them. It is a moral problem which we have to condemn. And we are condemning.
Yes, just to
disagree.
Even though we know also that in the course of this crisis, the military has also gone into hospitals.
Stephen,
I beg to disagree with you.
Before you advance your point on disagreeing with the Reverend, I want to remind us about some of those things that are considered war crimes: killing civilians, killing prisoners, destroying civilian property, kidnapping, rape, and pillage. Those are the main.
I say, I don't want to think that it is a moral crisis, because if it is a decline in morality, we have experienced that in Cameroon before today. It is not today it started. The corruption that is rocking the country is a fallout of the moral decadence in the country.
How do you rate corruption to murder?
What we are having
it is a crime.
What is playing out?
You cannot dissociate the moral
what is playing out
from the crime.
in the Northwest and Southwest are the fallouts of war. We're in a war situation.
I agree with you.
What complicates the matter? What makes the situation bad and worse is because one party has been taught how to fight war. The other party doesn't know how war should be fought. It's an asymmetric warfare. The government forces have been taught how to fight war and what they should do, the limits of war. The other party doesn't know the limits of war. They just do anything. I can recall that some time ago when this thing started, when Chua started training his forces at Dadi in Akwaya. I told a senior authority of this country that we should not let this thing to happen. If what I'm seeing in Akwaya is true, then it's a very bad situation.
What I'm saying,
if you give a civilian,
you do not need to be trained to go to war before you know that it's not right to go to school and
kill. Civilian handling a gun is more dangerous than a soldier handling a gun.
Listen to what
because what I'm saying is a civilian handling a gun is more dangerous. Yes, that's true. Yes. And what I am saying is a civilian handling a gun does not need any schooling to know that you don't need to go into a school compound or go to the hospital and shoot.
That is where that's where the moral crisis comes.
That is where the moral element is.
No,
we are in war, but there is a red line that we see
what is happening. What is happening clear? Let me just land. What is happening in the Northwest and Southwest? Understand that these most of the guys in the Amber Boys, the so-called Amber Boys, are people who are supposed to be in school learning. So most of them I want to believe that if it is the Amber Boys who did it, it could be as a result of frustration. That they are in the bushes under the rains. Their supposed classmates are in the classes.
Are you justifying such?
It's not justification.
No.
So what I'm saying is that we have allowed a very bad situation to further decay.
Okay,
and
we have heard that already.
We should go back. We should go back to the fundamentals.
Yeah,
I just wish to chip in that the situation in KUMBA is neither moral nor war decadence.
What is it?
It's an insurrection of unresolved anger of marginalization and discrimination.
Yeah.
When you say short and long.
No, you must have
fall out of both war and what you were saying.
And morals.
Okay.
It's an insurrection as a result of unresolved anger.
That touches the moral element, because whatever the reason for you to go out and exhibit your frustration, for you to go into a school and gun down children, there is something moral.
There is not moral education taught in schools. There is civic education. The churches every Sunday say something on morals, respect your father as and mother as the Ten Commandments says, and all those things come into play every day. Then why do we behave funny? Like Steve-O said, most of our corrupt officials who are languishing in prisons now went to religious schools. Did they teach them there that they should steal or they should be corrupt?
Before you come,
this problem of marginalization and discrimination, and once it is handled and handled appropriately, the problem will solve itself
the church.
naturally.
After that, I'll come to you. He's talking about morals having decayed so much. Reverend, can we say that we look up to the church to actually give morals in society? Has the church then failed?
The church has not failed. The church has been speaking. We should not play around about this thing. The politicians have disappointed us. The leadership of the nation has disappointed us.
This
thing has been going on. This thing has
politicians
been going on.
are citizens.
Yes, they are.
They went through moral education, which means we are not talking only about today. We are talking about time immemorial, that the church over time might not
the church from its inception has spoken about peace. What have we not said as pastors in this nation for the past 4 years since this crisis started? What sermons have we not preached? What talk have we not admonished politicians? What have we not said to leadership? But then we are church and we depend on God. There is a difference between the church and the state. The one who has the yam and the knife, as far as this crisis is concerned, is the government. It is the state. And when we speak, we end at that level and we pray, trusting our Heavenly Father that He is going to intervene or touch the hearts of the powers that be to make a difference on the ground.
Please go ahead and do it.
We have seen this kind of thing happen in other places,
yes,
and it was resolved very peacefully.
Yes, Killian, you know, we are talking about condemnation and all of that. But like Barrister said, we appear to be chasing by the shadow.
We are on the moral
or no moral. You cannot talk morality to somebody who picked up the gun.
Why not? Why did After everything is a human being.
No, he's a human being. Why did the person pick up the gun in the first place? Somebody has a gun. You cannot go and be preaching morality to somebody who has a gun. Let's look for solutions to this thing. Imagine 6 children plus 1.
I will preach morality.
They are killed. No.
If I meet anyone,
if you have access to them, Reverend,
if I meet anyone with a gun, I will let them know. No, you don't do this. You don't kill.
No, I've not even. Let me just conclude.
Yes.
They don't even attend church services. Maybe they follow on radio because you are a very fine radio preacher that I admire so much.
Thank you, sir.
For a very long time, been following your preachings, and I don't know the Baptist, but you are a very fine radio preacher. That aside, you cannot, like I was saying, let's look for. Imagine 7 children are killed. And it takes 24 hours for the head of state to tweet on the issue, saying that he has learned of it 24 hours after.
No, let me come
A delegation is sent to KUMBA. A delegation is sent to KUMBA. They enter the hotels and they do not visit the school where the crime was committed.
Patrick.
They do not go to the hospitals to see those that survived the massacre. And they come back to Yaoundé, and 24 hours after, fingers are already pointing. And at the same time, the head of state is talking about investigation that will open into something that the killers already know. We have to be sincere.
I know a bit about security.
Okay.
And I also know that being in a hurry sometimes doesn't pay. You can agree with me that when something happens, the head of state that you cited, he has people on the ground who have to bring up the information.
To tweet. 4 lines to tweet.
Listen, before he tweets, he needs to know so many things before he tweets. And he needs to compare facts.
It happens only here.
I think
it happens only here, except that our security apparatus are different from other countries.
We are going to move out of this topic.
Yes, let me just before move out. I want to insist on the fact that we should all realize that the options we adopted in solving this problem have failed.
Yeah.
So far, all the options adopted by the government to solve the problem.
We cannot say they have.
Events
have
no,
if they are not
excuse me. Allow me land.
Let me ask you a question. I will allow you to land. Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. If you answer that one,
yes,
then you go ahead.
Yes.
If all options had failed,
yes,
you will not even live in your house in Yaoundé.
Excuse me.
If you challenge that fact,
permit me land. Killian, you recall with me that when we had the crisis over when Cameroon and Nigeria went to war over Bakassi, at some point Cameroon stopped the war and decided to take it to the ICJ.
Yes.
And we saw the outcome of that gesture by Cameroon. We have had a lasting solution at Bakassi. Other similar situations, this kind of wars have been solved only on the dialogue table. What I'm trying to say here is that the military option that the government is insisting on has not succeeded in solving the problem. We are going to the fifth year. We are going to the fifth year. When it started, some people said in two weeks, the Umberly Razed and this cement. It is now 4 years going to 5.
That's a fact.
And schools are not going. Why don't we try other options?
Yeah.
Why don't we try other options? It is true that the national.
Is it not a process?
It is true. Let me come. Don't do my thinking for me. The truth is that we accept that the army is there to protect the territorial integrity of the state. No doubt about that. The army are trained to handle the gun. They know how to handle the gun.
Do you also agree that the territorial integrity of the state has been questioned in this war? Do you agree?
Excuse me, Killian. The army is trained, the army is created to protect the territorial integrity of the state. Nobody denies that. It is the role of the army to protect the territorial integrity of the state. The army is in the northwest and southwest fighting the war because the army doesn't do peace. The army only fights war. We know that police and gendarmes do peace. Army doesn't do peacekeeping.
Live among the people.
Yes, the army doesn't do peacekeeping. It is the police and gendarmes that do peacekeeping. When you find the B and the regular army soldiers in the field, it means that it is a war situation. So the situation in the northwest and southwest is a war situation. But what I'm saying is that the war in the northwest and southwest, going to war has not solved the problem. 4 years counting, and we're going to the fifth year. Can the government not think of another solution? That's the question I'm asking.
Okay, we understand your argument and we respect it, but we are saying, we've quoted before, we have the DDR, it's part of government action. We have the major national dialogue, it's part of government action. We also have some other consultations.
We hear the efforts of government.
We also know
we hear the efforts of government.
We know commissions that have been sent
in creating these commissions. Because if the events in the northwest and southwest continue the way they are, they'll keep on creating more and more commissions because it's like we are running behind. We are running behind events.
We are
running about events. What I'm saying is that we should be more proactive this time around.
The last thing on this topic is with you, Reverend.
Yes, I wish
morality.
I wish to give a call. I wish to appeal to the conscience of everybody.
Yes.
I wish to appeal to the conscience of everybody in this country. Authorities, the militants, the politicians, the media, to see that from this action, from this massacre, we cannot continue like this.
Okay, thank you very much. We got that.
Let us do something to put this crisis behind us. We are a nation.
That's the wish of all of us. We're going to move out of this topic to the next topic, which is related: education in Northwest and Southwest, how to sustain the momentum. But before we discuss, just watch how it started this year.
School-attending children in the Donga Mantung division of the Northwest are reported to have showed up in their numbers across the various school campuses in the division this Monday, October 5.
Schools reopened in GSWK with a population of 214 boys and 158 girls, making a total of 372. Then 7 teachers were present. We are so impressed to have this turnout.
Welcome Yaoundé to the Southwest region at the Presbyterian Comprehensive Secondary School, PCSS, in Boya, where classes have effectively taken off. In this institution, we want to be very honest with you that the students started checking in since on Sunday the 4th ahead of the D-Day, which is today. We find the students, and for this morning, they have already started on this first day, especially the Form 1 students. They started lectures with computer science, where they received their very first lecture.
Yes, and that is how it was on October 5 when schools reopened for the 2020-2021 school year. And how can we sustain the momentum that we have had until the KUMBA incident?
I think it's as easy as ABC, Killen.
Yeah, how easy?
We just for because they have to be short-term, long-term, medium-term, and long-term measures that have to be taken.
Yes, short-term.
For the short-term measures that have to be taken, we need to beef up security on campuses. That's the first thing, because to imagine that kids were attacked in KUMBA, in the heart
by
of,
11
in the heart of the city.
Yes.
At 11 a.m. I don't master KUMBA that much. I visit KUMBA often, but I don't master KUMBA. But I'm told by a colleague in the office that there is a police station that is not up to a kilometer from that campus.
Yes.
And if that attack could take place without any security element on campus, it's a call for concern, and it worries every other parent who is...
Don't forget, it was on a Saturday.
It was on a Saturday, but it's a school day. Remember, because of the what they call the ghost town on Mondays, schools now operate on Saturdays in full gear. So, like I said, the short-term measures that have to be taken. Government must assure parents that we cannot blame parents for sending their kids to school.
No,
neither can we blame kids for going to school. So the short-term measures that have to be taken. We have more control checkpoints to leave, for example, Matasm in Santa. To get to downtown, you pass about 5 police control, mixed control.
Yes.
We should have those security operatives on campuses to ensure the safety of
medium term.
Medium term. Let's go back to the dialogue table, if I thought dialogue ever started. Because even
I don't think that measure will solve the problem.
Yes.
I said for now, kids cannot go to school.
We have understood you.
When security is not guaranteed.
Yes. Security, medium term, dialogue.
We are getting back to
long term.
Long term, we have to now reconstruct, bring back all what has been destroyed, and we'll move on from there.
Yes, Reverend.
Let's not be constructing while the guns are smoking. Reverend. That should be the last step that should be taken.
Well, there is an equation that I have struggled with it ever since this crisis started, and then the school environment became militarized. Every time I look at it, I just imagine the days that I went to school in primary school, secondary school, university. I just can't imagine the psychological load and feeling that accompanies the children when you are sitting in class, seeing a military passing around with a Kalashnikov or AK-47 or whatever. It is something else. And my wish or plea is that whether it be short term, whether it be medium term or long term, let us put in place, let us sit down and take measures that would take us back to the status quo ante. How was schooling before this crisis erupted? How was the school environment before the military started standing at the gates of the schools and then moving around the classrooms? That is not the way you and I went to school.
No, it is not.
So it is incumbent upon all the parties concerned, and I would, with all due respect and support for the government, give the responsibility, the bigger responsibility upon the shoulders of the government to work to the effect that things should go back to the status quo ante.
That's said, yes. Barrister.
To talk on how sustainable is that momentum.
How to suspend the momentum that we had until KUMBA.
The first is that we should work on the psychosocial and sexual mental health of the population. First, we have to remove them from that fixation. That is to say, as at now they are blocked. We need to rewind them to say what has happened is, we play it down, so to say, so that they should come back to their original status quo ante and live normal lives. Because anytime they see a child wearing a uniform, whether it is holidays or school time, the story will come back fresh. Good. So we need to debrief them of that situation. That's
when you say we, you
are also involved.
Well, you are a psychosocial expert.
Yes.
I thought that you were going to say.
Yes, we have all the tools and the ingredients for that assignment. Once the system approaches us, we will not hesitate to provide that. And the second most important point again is the situation of internally displaced persons in their host communities.
What about that?
There is a lot of social influx in areas that did not experience a lot of human beings at once. They too come with their habits. They too come with some of their problems. And once you are pushed on the walls, the only thing you can do is to kick back, since that concrete wall cannot break.
No,
so we should look at the situation of IDPs who have left the war zones to where there is a bit of peace in our city centers, like in KUMBA, Bamenda, and other areas that are nearer our neighbors from different regions.
Yes.
We should learn to work with them, because at any time they are like refugees who are very volatile.
Yes,
and anything can happen.
Stephen, how do we sustain the momentum that we have had until last Saturday when we had the massacre?
I will start by saying that I will not agree with you when you say it was a momentum. There was some hope when schools were about to start. There was some hope because the other part, that is to say the separatists who until now had never called for schools to resume, some of the leaders of the separatists have started calling for schools to resume. So that ignited some hope among the population. But to say there was a momentum, I don't think there was any momentum. People were still observing.
No, there were momentum.
There was a momentum.
Let me come.
If you look at school enrollment,
allow me land.
In 2020, it's more than the 3 years of this conflict period that we have had.
That study needs to be confirmed.
No, it cannot be.
What I'm saying
from
is
where
that
I come from.
When the hope came on, I called my area first. I called my village. As students mobilizing to go to school, they said nothing. I called about Manfred. They say a few schools. I want to tell you that
a few schools have started.
Excuse me, in Manu division where I come from, it is only Manfred town. A few kilometers from Manfred town, there's no school. If you go to places like Bui division, there was no school. So when you say that's why I say it was not momentum. It was a hope.
No, it's sweeping. It's sweeping.
It's a hope.
Schools in KUMBA.
There was some hope that has become forlorn because of what is happening, events in KUMBA, and the hope is dying because, and I want to think that, like the last speaker said, Patrick, that the government should provide security by stationing soldiers in schools. It cannot work. In normal situations in Cameroon, the government will not be able to provide security in certain towns in the country.
Now, before you come,
excuse me. Yeah, so what needs to be done? What needs to be done is to go into the root causes of this problem. The first thing is that we should see how we can stop the armed option in solving this crisis, and see how we can convince both parties to come to the dialogue table. The first thing is to call for a ceasefire on both sides. Let both sides drop the arms. When both sides drop arms, children can go to school, while the government and the other parties, they are dialoguing to solve the problem. Anything else will not work.
Now, what if I define momentum as a new wave of hope in a situation that was already getting bad.
Yes.
Will you now accept that type of definition, because that is exactly what was happening?
For somebody with a science background like myself, when you talk of momentum is a force. There was no force.
We cannot say that.
Momentum
there was a force.
Momentum is a force. There was no force. People ignited hope in the minds of people, others, in the sense that both parties were now talking of calling for schools to resume.
Yeah.
When I heard Eric Tato talking forcefully that it is high time students go to school, I felt so happy and so elated. But at the same time, other members of the same separatist camp were saying that no, students will not go to school.
Yeah, right.
So a momentum would have been if the majority of the separatists,
measure the level of momentum. That you doubt the momentum.
Yeah, that is the point I'm trying to say. It depends now on the level of momentum.
Yes, if that's what you are saying,
I prefer to use hope. There was no momentum.
But to say that there was no momentum, I think we are not saying
missing the point.
We are missing the point. Okay. Because when you look at, there are certain areas, like you said, it is true, we cannot give the impression that schools have been effective across the two regions. Absolutely. We cannot give that impression here. But there are areas that registered almost zero school resumption in previous years.
Yes.
I'm talking from 2017
yes.
to 2018 across 2019.
Because there was that hope.
But in 2020, some of those areas,
there was the hope that normalcy is returning.
Like in the Northwest, for example, we only knew of Nkambe. I don't want to say Ndonga Mantu because it will be exaggerating to say that Ndonga Mantu. Because just few kilometers from Ndonga Mantu, neighboring communities there are not having kind of the school effervescence and excitement we find in Nkambe. In Womb, it was almost zero in 2017, 2018. But this year, I will not want to give the statistics here because I don't have them handy.
But they know that
there have been an increase in the number of enrollment in most of those schools, and teachers are effectively present on the ground.
What we need to know is that hundreds of thousands of confidence that they give. Hundreds of thousands of students.
I don't want to join the rhetoric on what momentum is and what momentum is not.
There was no momentum.
The fact is this. For the past 4 years, schooling in the Northwest and Southwest has not been what it ought to be. That's the bottom line.
Good.
And we are saying and appealing to the powers that be that this should not continue, this cannot continue, and therefore let us humble ourselves. Let us humble ourselves. Let us calm down. We are brothers. We are citizens of this nation. Let us humble ourselves. No single individual owns this nation. Let us humble ourselves, come together to the negotiating table, talk to each other. We know who to talk to. We know who to bring to the table, and then let things go back to the status quo. And I'm not interested in the semantics and the rhetoric of momentum or no momentum.
Okay, thank you very much. Briefly, we want to welcome.
Wish to say that whether it is momentum or it is static, the point is that the population was led into believing falsely that there is a shadow peace. Let children go to school and look at the consequence.
No, that's an isolated case.
But that one notwithstanding, I just wish to say, with your permission, that the national dialogue needs a new paradigm in its implementation, in that they need an efficient follow-up of the resolutions of that dialogue.
Okay,
the resolutions are good, but we need to speed up the realization,
the implementation,
so that peace should come back.
Thank you. And with that, we're going to welcome Bruno into the studio. Bruno, good day.
Good day, Killian.
Yes, Bruno has come into the studio with your reactions. Remember that you can watch Press R live, and we have people who are watching live and they had reactions to the topics that we are treating today. Bruno has some of the reactions, and we want to get them from you.
Yes, Killian, we'll go straight to the reactions. Dracom Augustine says, atrocities in Cameroon has been worse than war crisis. It is high time the government did something reasonable to end these barbaric killings, especially of innocent children and women. Emmanuel Chopkwe, it is a war crisis looking at the magnitude of the massacre, not leaving out similar massacres elsewhere committed by both sides in the restive English-speaking parts of Cameroon. Once there is genuine dialogue and root causes of the crisis tackled, sustained momentum will be a thing of the past. And Michael Liam says, we are experiencing pre-war conditions. The land has been swallowed, and the innocent people, especially the youth, are paying the heavy price. I think it's high time something was done to end these atrocities and find lasting solutions to the problem. Prince Mutapane says the wicked wouldn't go unpunished. It's sad how some people would use children's future as a mortgage. It's criminal. And on Twitter, Rebecca Enonchong goes ahead to say, for me, first tool in conflict resolution is empathy. Francophones traveling to KUMBA to condole with bereaved, it is the type of gesture that will save lives because it is humanizes the other, save lives because it helps lower tensions.
The last one.
And somebody replied to Rebecca Enonchong by saying, until we consider ourselves Cameroonians and not Anglophones or Francophones, that will not change. In Rwanda today, there is no Hutu or Tutsis.
Thank you very much, Bruno. Thank you for the reactions. Those reactions came from you as you were watching this program, and you will always watch this program live on CRTV web Facebook. You get to us, you watch the program live. That is the platform where you also send in your contributions, and we have them streamed live as we have done now. We have just a few minutes to go. We're going to conclude the program, the way forward.
I want to say that, like I said before, we all admit that the head of state swore on oath to protect the territorial integrity of the state. The Constitution gives him the powers to do that. The Cameroonian army, unlike any other army, is trained to protect the territorial integrity of every country.
Yes.
But what we are saying here is that using arms now, it has proven that the armed struggle has failed in the Northwest and Southwest.
Yeah,
it is high time we adopt other measures of solving the
at this time, we have to, the army has to protect while we wait for that solution. Yes.
Yeah, what I would like to say is that we should stimulate peace by not fueling war through hate speeches, emotional invectives, and seditious cries and wailing.
Thank you very much.
We should keep statistics of all what is happening, because there will be a day of reckoning.
Thank you, Reverend.
My concluding word would be that let every leader at all levels see their position of power as a privilege given by God. Nobody is God, and each leader should be aware that a day is coming when you will be spoken of in the past tense. So while life lasts, do your best so that we can remember you on a good note.
That should have been the conclusion statement. Yes, please, please, Patrick.
The man of God has just
no, please. Yes, please. Patrick, your last word.
Yes, it makes sense to reiterate that the primary objective.
We are here. Patrick is talking. Yes, please.
No, Killer, I was saying that it makes sense to reiterate that the primary responsibility of every government across the world is to protect its citizens. And the moment the lives of the citizens are no longer protected, then the government should cease to exist.
The government that was the last word. We don't have time on our side, Stephen. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Very much for watching, and that's what we had time for on Press Hour today. Watch this program tomorrow, Monday, at about 3 p.m. Watch it at your convenience on CRTV web Facebook. Thank you once again. Have a nice day ahead. Hope you enjoyed the program.